It's so sad that you can't get any inheritance. Your fate is like garbage.
Madeline's face was filled with a triumphant smile. It seemed to be a blow to me, who had turned pale after hearing about my husband's inheritance.
Yeah, that's right. It's a waste even though you took care of him for so long. Our choice seems to have been correct.
Benjamin also laughed loudly in the same way. He showed his teeth in a satisfied and nasty way, as things were going according to their plan. Oh, no, why? I was still confused in my head, unable to believe the procedure for my husband's inheritance that was read out. I begged them not to laugh at me anymore. My hands, which I held tightly on my knees, were sweating. My name is Wilma White. I'm 55 years old and work for a real estate company. Originally, I lived with my husband Sebastian and my eldest son's family, but since Sebastian collapsed from a cerebral hemorrhage a year ago, I have been living with my husband while I took care of him. My eldest son's family escaped from the house early on, saying they didn't want to take care of my husband. Sebastian had a stroke and unfortunately, it was discovered that he had metastasized stomach cancer from a previous illness. There was nothing more that could be done for him, so I decided to take care of him at home, hoping to spend as much time with him as possible. I had no experience in nursing, so I contacted a friend who was a nurse and received advice on how to take care of Sebastian. Despite my awkward nursing, Sebastian never complained and always had a calm expression on his face, even though he must have been suffering from his illness. However, whenever the conversation turned to my eldest son's family, Sebastian would invariably frown. My husband and I only had one child, our son Benjamin. We had wanted a daughter as well, but due to my weak physical condition, we only had one child. We doted on our only child, Benjamin, and spent a lot of money on his education since he was our only child. Unfortunately, Benjamin was not very bright and after graduating from high school, he became a truck driver. Although I had hoped that he would go to university and work for a bigger company, I realized that it was his choice and that I shouldn't force him to do something he didn't want to do. It would be cruel to force him to study. Perhaps because he was an only child, Benjamin was a bit spoiled. He didn't clean up his room or put away his clothes, and he was sloppy. He probably thought that if he asked, his parents would do anything for him, and even when he was warned, he ignored it. It's true that my husband and I may have spoiled him a little because he was our only child, but I sighed every time I saw his bad habits, which never improved even after he became an adult. I thought Benjamin would get married late because of his personality, but I was wrong. 5 years ago, when Benjamin was 25 years old, he married Madeline, who was 1 year younger than him. I don't know what attracted Benjamin to her, but Madeline was a flashy woman with bright red nails, so I wasn't surprised. And this eldest son's family has been messing up my life. When Benjamin got married, it was something I didn't expect. Even after getting married, Benjamin asked if he could continue living with us. Huh? But what does Madeline think? She doesn't want to live with us, does she?
No, actually, Madeline said she wants to live with you guys. Right?
Yes. I want to get along with my mother-in-law and father-in-law.
I was impressed by how cute she said despite her flashy appearance, so I agreed to let my eldest son's family live with us. Sebastian looked like he wanted to say something, but he was a man of few words, so he didn't object. When my eldest son's family moved in with me, my life became very busy. Just having one more person around changed the amount of food and laundry I had to do. At first, I thought that Madeline, who was a housewife, would help me out, but she never lifted a finger. She just lounged in the living room and waited for meals to be served, like a big child. It was like having another child instead of an adult. I immediately asked Madeline to help me with the housework. Madeline, could you help me with the housework a little? Madeline stared at me and said,
What? Are you kidding me?
And put her hand over her mouth.
Were you the type of mother-in-law who bullied me? Ugh, I'm not good with that kind of thing.
I was speechless at Madeline's words. I couldn't believe it. I'm not bullying you. I just said that if we're living together, we should share the housework. Even though I was speaking the truth, Madeline looked flustered and ran over to Benjamin, as if she was a child clinging to her mother after being teased by her siblings. Benjamin said,
Mom, don't blame Madeline. She's nervous because she just got married.
Benjamin came over and complained to me. I'm not blaming her. I just pointed out something that is natural for a person to do.
That's scary for Madeline. You need to realize that you're in the position of a mother-in-law.
Well, Madeline, who was hiding behind Benjamin, smiled faintly as if she had won. This bride makes it all strategy. She must have wanted to live with me because she didn't want to do housework. Certainly, she doesn't look like she can do housework at all. It was my mistake to start living with her carelessly.
Anyway, Mom, do the housework, please. You've been doing it until now, so it won't change even if there's one more person. We're in our working prime now.
Even so, Madeline is a housewife. I want to argue that I'm the one who works full-time, but she probably won't listen to me even if I do. She's still young and has just gotten married, so maybe Madeline's feelings are really down. For now, I pretended to agree with Benjamin's story. It was the worst form of cohabitation with my eldest son and his wife, but even after 2 years, my life hasn't changed. Madeline still spends her days doing nothing around the house, and I'm doing my best to work and do housework. Sebastian helped me out from time to time, but he collapsed from a cerebral hemorrhage. Although he was hospitalized for a while and treated for the cerebral hemorrhage, he was left with paralysis on his left side and became a care recipient. If that was all, there was a possibility that he could be cured by rehabilitation, but unfortunately, a metastasis of the stomach cancer that he had developed in the past was found. The doctor said that there was nothing more that could be done. I was devastated and felt like my world had turned dark. I wondered if I could bear losing Sebastian. However, it was clear that Sebastian himself was suffering more than I was, so I held back my tears and waited for the doctor to finish speaking. Sebastian was originally scheduled to undergo rehabilitation at the hospital, but we decided to prioritize palliative care for his cancer and care for him at home. Although he said he would go to a facility, I wanted to be with Sebastian for as long as possible. When I expressed my feelings to him, Sebastian quietly nodded and said, I understand. When my husband's caregiver life began, my eldest son and his wife started leaving the house as if they were measuring it. They probably didn't want to take on any caregiving responsibilities themselves. I don't know where they live, but they come home occasionally and leave again without even looking at their father's face. However, they frequently called me. The first time Benjamin called me, I was skeptical about why he was calling when he wasn't taking care of his father. Hello, what's up?
Oh, Mom. How's Dad doing?
What? Even Benjamin was worried about his father. He never seemed to be straightforward. I was exasperated. He's the same. Oh, but he has an appetite.
No. Not that. I was just wondering how much longer he has to live, lol.
A mocking laughter echoed from the other end of the phone. Madeline's voice was mixed in with that laughter, and I realized that the two of them were not worried about Sebastian, but rather the opposite. Please don't say such insensitive things. Are you his son?
Of course I am. I'm looking forward to inheriting my father's estate because I'm his son.
What a thing to say. What a thing indeed. Benjamin wasn't worried about Sebastian at all. Instead, he was looking forward to inheriting his father's estate after he passed away.
Anyway, let me know when he's about to die. Maybe I'll show him my face one last time.
I felt my blood boil at Benjamin's words mixed with laughter.
Wilma, is something wrong?
Sebastian must have heard my voice on the phone and called out to me from his bed. No, it's nothing. Just another annoying sales call.
I see. That's a nuisance.
Sebastian would never have thought that his eldest son and daughter-in-law were more concerned about inheriting his estate than his life. I didn't want to make him sad by letting him know. Are you hungry yet? I'll make you something special.
Thank you. I'm happy.
I had to protect Sebastian at all costs. Because he was the only person I loved. My caregiving life continued for 3 years. I was prepared for the worst since the doctor had told me that Sebastian's condition was not good, but he did better than expected. The doctor praised me for my devoted care, saying that it was a miracle that he had lived this long. As usual, Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law called me many times to ask about Sebastian's condition. I was getting fed up with them, so I stopped taking calls from Benjamin and Madeline.
Wilma, thank you.
Sebastian gave me a peaceful expression and fell asleep in his last moment. Even when Sebastian was critically ill, his eldest son and daughter-in-law did not come home. I tried to call them back by phone, but Sebastian stopped me. Sebastian was concerned about his eldest son and daughter-in-law till the very end. He was concerned about them in a positive way, but mostly he was worried that I would have a hard time after he passed away. When I told Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law that Sebastian had passed away, they hurried back even though they had been reluctant to do so.
Finally, he's dead. He worked hard for nothing. That's why we had to live in a hotel for so long.
That's right. We're broke. I wonder if we can get the inheritance soon.
I knew it, but I felt nauseous at their words. While ignoring Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law, I arranged Sebastian's funeral and finally got to the topic of inheritance. The lawyer opened Sebastian's will. Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law were waiting eagerly for the contents to be read. I swallowed hard.
Sebastian White hereby bequeaths the following property to his eldest son, Benjamin White.
The lawyer read out Sebastian's land, house, our current home, and all debts. At the same time, I saw Benjamin and Madeline's faces shining brightly in front of me.
All right, we did it. Father was on our side after all.
That's right. I'm a little worried about the debt, but it'll be okay, as long as we have the inheritance.
The two of them were overwhelmed with joy. In the end, all that was left for me was a small apartment that Sebastian had purchased for investment purposes. Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law looked at me, who was devastated, and said loudly,
It's so sad that you won't inherit anything. Your fate is like garbage.
Madeline's face was full of a triumphant smile. It seemed to be a further blow to me, who had turned pale after hearing about my husband's inheritance.
Yeah, that's right. It was all for nothing even though you took care of him so much. In that sense, our choice was correct.
Benjamin also laughed loudly in the same way. Things were going according to their plan, and they showed their satisfaction by showing their teeth in an unpleasant manner. That's not right, why? I still couldn't believe the letter of inheritance that the lawyer had read aloud, and my head was in chaos. Please, don't laugh at me anymore. My hands, which I clenched on my knees, were sweating. Then the lawyer began to explain the details of the inheritance to Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law. Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law were overjoyed to hear that they would receive their father's huge inheritance, and they didn't seem to listen to the lawyer's explanation carefully. The lawyer seemed to want to say something to me, but he didn't talk to me in the end, probably because I was too shocked. Oh, why? I remember the days when I took care of Sebastian. Did Sebastian really not agree with my care? Did he want to receive proper care at a facility? If so, it was a farce. I had been working hard to take care of him every day without even realizing that Sebastian was unhappy with my care. Sometimes I was annoyed by unpleasant phone calls from Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law. I desperately tried to hide the contents of the phone calls from Sebastian because it would be bad if he knew. I didn't want to make Sebastian, who was sick, sad. That's okay that I was the only one who was troubled by that couple alone. That was the only way I could think of to protect Sebastian. I wonder what will become of me from now on. My life, in which I lost my beloved and didn't receive a single penny of inheritance, is. I was crying alone while the eldest son and his wife were listening to the lawyer's story with a happy expression. The next day, I moved to a small apartment as written in Sebastian's will. I really wanted to feel Sebastian's presence a little more at home, but Madeline said,
"This is our house. Get out quickly."
So I gave up and packed my things. The apartment I went to with a heavy heart had one living room and one bedroom, and a small kitchen. It might be just right for living alone. This room was originally purchased by Sebastian as an investment, but he fell ill soon after and it was left unused without being rented out. The shelves, TV, air conditioner, and other furniture and appliances are all available. Since I was able to check the electricity and water and they worked properly, there should be no problem living here. The walls and floors seemed to have been renovated, and there was a new house smell in the air. It was as if telling me that Sebastian was no longer in this world, and it made me feel lonely. I was reading a book as usual in the house for a while, but I suddenly noticed a large, unfamiliar square box-like object on the tatami mat. I was curious and approached it, and it turned out to be safe. It was big. It seemed to be a commercial safe, not a household one. I can't believe there's something like this. But I don't know the passcode. The safe was the type that pressed a 4-digit passcode with buttons, and I couldn't do anything because I didn't know the passcode. I thought of what Sebastian might have said as the passcode. Come to think of it, he had set the password to unlock his phone to my birthday. I tried pressing my birthday, and with a light sound, the lock opened. Well, I was surprised that the key had opened, but there were many things crammed inside. A large white bag that had something inside and was bulging occupied the safe, and there was an envelope underneath it. Something he wrote? Rather than checking the contents of the bag, I cut open the envelope of the letter.
To Wilma, I'm sorry for what happened. I asked a trusted friend to put this letter in your home safe. You must be feeling very disappointed right now. I'm really sorry. Please bear with my excuse for a little while.
Sebastian first apologized for leaving me behind and not being able to leave anything but a small apartment. I felt as if Sebastian was right in front of me and read on intently.
I couldn't do anything when I saw Benjamin and Madeline saying terrible things to you and forcing you to do housework. I was angry, but I often came home late from work and was too tired to scold them when I got home. I'm really sorry. If I were gone, those two might do even worse things to you. That was my only worry, and I was worried about what to do every day.
I see. I had been desperately hiding the contents of the heartless phone calls from Sebastian's eldest son and daughter-in-law so that Sebastian wouldn't know, but Sebastian was worried about their tyranny.
Finally, I came up with a strategy. Inheritance. In that will, I gave almost all of the inheritance to Benjamin and nothing to you except for the apartment. You must have been disappointed. But listen. What Benjamin inherited is almost worthless, just junk.
What? What does that mean? Benjamin should have received all of Sebastian's fixed assets. In other words, all of Sebastian's property. And that's junk?
Ask Benjamin for details. He'll probably call you angry anyway. But more importantly, I've entrusted you with all of my property. You may have already seen it because I put it in the safe. That's the only way I can think of to protect you right now. I really wanted to be with you and live together longer. But I've already been called away, so I just wanted to thank you for supporting me and taking care of me until now. Thank you, Wilma. I've always loved you.
My vision was blurred with tears. Tears fell on the letter, and Sebastian's handwriting was blurred. I took out a white bag with trembling hands and opened it. There were countless bundles of $100 bills inside. The total amount might be hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. If I were to live alone, it would be more than enough money for me. Thank you, I said. I held Sebastian's letter tightly in front of my chest and cried until my tears ran dry. A few days passed. Thanks to Sebastian's inheritance, I was able to spend my days peacefully. I returned to work after taking a break for caregiving and was enjoying my fulfilling days. Then, on a Sunday afternoon 2 weeks after moving into this house, my smartphone rang. I looked at the screen to see who it was, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw the name Benjamin. As Sebastian's letter had said, Benjamin was calling me. "It's okay, I have Sebastian with me." I answered the phone calmly, no matter what he said. "Hello, it's me."
Mom. Where are you now?
"In the apartment your father gave me."
That rundown apartment. How can you live there?
"Well, it's okay. How about you? You moved to a big house, right? Is it comfortable?" My eldest son and his wife should be living in the big house they inherited from Sebastian, but they must have realized that the house was worth nothing. The person on the phone changed from Benjamin to Madeline.
What's going on with this? This house is so dilapidated, moldy, and there are bugs everywhere. It's disgusting. I can't sleep here.
Madeline's screams from the other end of the phone told me how bad the house was. Then, it seemed that Benjamin took the phone again and kindly told me about their situation.
Father's inheritance is all junk. Even if we have it appraised, it won't be worth anything. And there were dozens of promissory notes for my father's debts in the safe at home. What the hell is going on? Did Mom know something?
After listening to Benjamin's story, I finally found in my head about what Sebastian had done. Sebastian had researched the value of the fixed assets he intended to inherit to Benjamin in advance and found out that they were completely worthless. He then bequeathed them to Benjamin. Furthermore, he added a huge amount of debt as a bonus. Benjamin seemed confused, probably because he didn't expect to have such a large amount of debt. No, I didn't know. I didn't know this would happen until I heard the will.
Damn it.
In reality, he learned about it after reading the letter, but there was no need to tell Benjamin the truth. I could hear Benjamin and Madeline arguing on the other end of the phone. Madeline said,
"It's all because of your shitty father. I'll sue you."
In response, Benjamin said,
You're the one who said you wanted the inheritance. You changed your attitude when you realized it wasn't worth any money. You're a scammer.
The two of them were already having a huge fight that I couldn't control. I sighed deeply and, to vent my frustration with them, took a deep breath in front of my smartphone. You two. Neither of you are innocent. You didn't take care of your father at all. You've been living your life as you please, leaving all the housework to me. It's your own fault that you're in this situation. Stop making a fuss over a little debt and disturbing the neighborhood. You're both shitty. If you understand, then hang up the phone. Don't ever contact me again. I hung up the phone without waiting for their response. After hanging up the phone, Benjamin called me several times, but I completely ignored him and blocked his calls. I was finally able to regain my peace of mind. Phew. I'm sure those people learned something from this. Living isn't that easy. I lay down on the bed and took a moment to reflect on all the hardships I had gone through. I decided to stay here for a while. It's okay to cut ties with Benjamin and his family. No, I should cut ties with them. Otherwise, they will beg me to help them repay their debt. In the midst of overwhelming fatigue, I closed my eyes while thinking about such things. Finally, I could have a good dream. Sebastian, thank you so much. You really protected me. After that, I cut ties with Benjamin as planned and finally obtained a free life. When was the last time I could live without taking care of others? Of course, taking care of Sebastian was not a burden at all. If possible, I wanted to live alone with Sebastian, but there was nothing I could do about it. Now, I have no choice but to move forward. Benjamin and Madeline are now working hard all day long to repay their debts. Even the sloppy Madeline is working, so they must be under considerable pressure. My colleague's son works at the same workplace as Benjamin, and he seems to be surprised by Benjamin's appearance, which is getting worse day by day. However, Benjamin is said to be sarcastically praised at work for being so worn out and not fighting back against his superiors. Madeline is stressed out from her unfamiliar job and has been binge eating and drinking to relieve it. She has gained about 44 pounds in just 6 months. A friend of mine who happened to see Madeline told me about it. Her youthfulness seems to have disappeared somewhere, and she walks dragging her heavy body. But I don't feel sorry for her. It's all the result of her own actions. I don't care about it. Well, let's go to work today. Recently, more and more subordinates at work rely on me, and I find it more enjoyable to work. I'm still active. As long as my body is healthy, I'll do my best to contribute to society. I saw Sebastian's photo and said, I'm going now. How was this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.
Hello? What's wrong? I was surprised by the sudden phone call from my parents-in-law, and when I answered, my mother-in-law suddenly started shouting.
My daughter and grandchild were hospitalized because of you. How are you going to take responsibility?
What? I had no idea what she was talking about and was just stunned. My name is Scarlett. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. I've been married to my husband Austin for 3 years. We met at a cafe run by my sister-in-law Jasmine. I loved my sister-in-law's cafe and often went there for coffee. Since I often sat at the counter, I naturally talked to my sister-in-law, who was the owner, a lot. And my husband worked for a company near my sister-in-law's cafe, so he often came to the cafe during his work breaks or after work. When I came as a customer, I often sat at the counter and talked to my sister-in-law, so I naturally started talking to him as a regular. Then, little by little, we got closer, and we started going out with my sister-in-law first, then the 3 of us went out for drinks, and then we started seeing each other alone. And my sister-in-law was very happy when she found out that my husband and I were dating. She was the first to congratulate us when we got married. I never thought I would meet my future partner at a cafe where I became a regular, but I thought that rare things like this can happen in life. I was also liked by my sister-in-law, and since I worked for a company, my parents-in-law were happy to approve of my marriage to my husband. The people in my husband's family, including my sister-in-law, are all very nice people. Even when I went to my parents-in-law's house for the first time after getting married, they welcomed me warmly and were very kind to me.
I heard Scarlett was coming today, so I bought some sweets at the department store. Let's have them with delicious tea.
Thank you very much. My parents-in-law always smile and treat me like their real daughter, and there is no trace of the kind of bullying that we often hear about in-laws. Originally, I was close to my sister-in-law, so we sometimes went out to eat or travel with my husband's family. While getting along well with my husband's family like that, I was living happily with my husband, but one day, something happened that turned those days around. Hello? It was after midnight. Suddenly, my parents-in-law called me. What's wrong? I was surprised by the sudden phone call from my parents-in-law, and when I answered, my mother-in-law suddenly started shouting.
My daughter and grandchild were hospitalized because of you. How are you going to take responsibility?
What? I had no idea what she was talking about and was just stunned. What do you mean? Did Jasmine and her daughter get hospitalized? My sister-in-law is a single mother with a 7-year-old daughter. It seems that my sister-in-law and her daughter were hospitalized with serious injuries. Moreover, my parents-in-law thought it was my fault and were berating me in a very scary voice.
I'll never forgive you. Why did Jasmine and her daughter have to go through this?
My mother-in-law seemed quite flustered, and I had no idea what was going on. Please calm down. Can you explain it to me properly? Even though I said this, my mother-in-law was in a state where her blood was boiling.
How can I calm down? My daughter and grandchild were seriously injured. Why didn't you help them?
My mother-in-law just cried and shouted, and there was no conversation at all. I didn't know what to do, and then the voice on the phone changed to my father-in-law.
Scarlett, do you know what you did? Do you understand how much Jasmine and her daughter are suffering? Fortunately, there were no fatal injuries, but they were seriously injured. Why did you abandon Jasmine and her daughter?
Of course, my father-in-law was angry too, but his voice was a little calmer. So I thought my father-in-law would listen to me properly. I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you tell me what happened? When I asked him desperately, my father-in-law asked me.
Do you really not know?
After asking me that, he told me the story. I was speechless when I heard it. My sister-in-law lived about a 10-minute walk from my house. And she had been dating a boyfriend for about 6 months, but apparently he had a personality where he couldn't be stopped when he got angry. My parents-in-law had been telling my sister-in-law to break up with him for a long time. But my parents-in-law lived far away, so they couldn't easily go to my sister-in-law's place, and since she ran a shop, my sister-in-law couldn't go back to her parents' house. I had no idea that my sister-in-law had such a boyfriend. My sister-in-law apparently wanted to break up with him, but she didn't want to stimulate him too much, so she couldn't break up with him easily. And today, when her boyfriend came to the house in the evening, he got angry and started throwing things in the house at my sister-in-law and her daughter. My sister-in-law, who felt her life was in danger, quickly left the house with her daughter and ran away. Then she apparently visited our house. But according to my father-in-law, I turned her away.
So my daughter had no choice but to run to her own cafe, but that man came there and broke the window glass to get in. A nearby restaurant worker who heard the loud noise called the police, but my daughter and granddaughter had already been assaulted by that man who had lost his temper. So they were taken to the hospital by ambulance. Why did you turn them away at that time? If you had let them in, my daughter and granddaughter would have been safe.
I was at a loss for words. I wasn't home when my sister-in-law came to visit. Today, I was out drinking with my high school friends. So I didn't talk to my sister-in-law, nor did I meet her. Wait a minute. I didn't meet Jasmine.
Don't lie. Austin told me that you refused to let Jasmine into the house.
What? Austin said that? I was surprised. I couldn't believe my husband was blaming me. Why did he blame me in the first place? Wait a minute. Are you with Austin now?
Of course. He's watching over my daughter, who is still unconscious and looks worried.
Please tell me the hospital. I'll come there too.
No, don't come. We won't be able to stay sane if you come.
That's not true, but I really wasn't home at that time.
Do you have any evidence?
Well, I took a picture with my smartphone when I was drinking with my high school friends. The photo has a timestamp. I think I can prove it if you look at it. When I said that, my father-in-law was silent for a moment.
Okay. Then I'll meet you alone.
So he gave me a chance. We met at a family restaurant near the hospital. When I arrived at the family restaurant, my father-in-law was already sitting at the table drinking coffee. I nervously walked up to his table. I'm sorry for keeping you waiting, said I, and my father-in-law gave me a glare before telling me to sit down. I took a seat and ordered coffee as well. Then I quickly prepared my phone and showed my father-in-law a photo. This is a picture I took with my friends today. If you open the details of this photo, you can see the date and time it was taken, I said as I demonstrated. My father-in-law's eyes widened.
Indeed, That time period was when Jasmine visited Austin's house. Are you sure you weren't home at that time? Then why would Austin lie?
I don't know. But it's a fact that I wasn't at home. If I was home at that time, I would have let Jasmine in immediately, I replied. After taking a deep breath, my father-in-law said,
I'm sorry for doubting you. I'll let my wife apologize to you later. First, I'll go to the hospital to hear the truth. Can you wait nearby?
He asked. Okay, I replied. And so my father-in-law and I went to the hospital together. I waited near the hospital room while my father-in-law talked to my mother-in-law and husband.
What excuse did that woman make?
My mother-in-law asked.
Scarlett wasn't home when Jasmine visited. She showed me the evidence.
My father-in-law replied. My mother-in-law gasped in surprise. Then I heard my husband's panicked voice.
Wait a minute, Dad. I was definitely with Scarlett at home at that time. When I asked if I could let my sister in, Scarlett said she didn't want to let them in so late at night and sent them back to the entrance. Scarlett is lying. The photo evidence must have been tampered with.
My husband exclaimed. I couldn't believe my ears. Why was my husband trying to make me the bad guy? Before I knew it, I was inside the hospital room. Why are you lying like that? Austin. I shouted.
Huh? Scarlett, why are you here?
My husband asked.
I called her and asked me to wait. Austin, why are you lying at such an important time?
My father-in-law asked.
Oh. I'm not lying.
My husband stuttered.
You're still trying to cover it up. If Scarlett is really lying, let's go to the restaurant where she went with her friends tomorrow and ask the staff who worked there at that time. If we explain the situation, they'll be happy to help.
My father-in-law said. As soon as my father-in-law said that, my husband's face turned pale. Hey, why did you lie like that? Do you have something to hide from me? I asked.
Huh? No. Of course not.
My husband replied. At that moment, my sister-in-law woke up with a groan.
Jasmine,
Cried my mother-in-law, rushing to my sister-in-law in a panic.
Let's call a doctor right away.
Said my father-in-law, running to the nurse's station. The doctor arrived quickly and checked on my sister-in-law's condition.
If you rest quietly, you'll be fine.
The doctor said, and we were relieved.
thank goodness. Jasmine,
My mother-in-law said, hugging my sister-in-law and crying. My sister-in-law's daughter was unharmed, as my sister-in-law had protected her from the man who had attacked her, and she was sleeping peacefully now. My father-in-law asked us to leave the room so that my sister-in-law would not be stressed.
I'm sorry, but could you leave for a moment?
He said, and my husband and I were forced out of the room. As soon as we left the room, I asked my husband why he had lied to me about not letting my sister-in-law into the house. Why did you tell them that I didn't let my sister-in-law into the house? Why didn't you let Jasmine and her daughter in? I asked. My husband was flustered and couldn't answer my question.
Oh. That's. I'm a little flustered too.
I don't understand, I said. As we talked outside the hospital room, my father-in-law came over to us.
I'm sorry, but could you come back in for a moment?
He said, and we returned to the room. My sister-in-law glared at my husband.
Austin, why didn't you let us into the house?
She asked.
What? Oh, Scarlett was against it.
My husband said.
Don't lie. I heard from Dad. Scarlett wasn't even home at the time. But I saw a woman in the living room. I called out to Scarlett many times, but she didn't respond at all. It must have been a different woman.
My sister-in-law said. I was stunned by her words. What do you mean, Austin? Did you bring another woman into the house while I was gone? Even when I asked him, my husband remained frozen with a blue face.
Austin, explain yourself properly.
My mother-in-law also opened her eyes wide and questioned my husband.
What if you said something?
My father-in-law, who had been calm until a moment ago, also shouted at my husband in anger. Then my husband seemed to have given up and confessed everything. It seems that the person my husband was with at that time was his mistress. So he lied in a hurry because my sister-in-law came. And he said that I refused to let her into the house.
You idiot!
My father-in-law shouted and slapped my husband's cheek.
If you hadn't had an affair, Jasmine and my grandchild wouldn't have been hurt like this.
I'm sorry.
My husband apologized to my sister-in-law and my parents-in-law while prostrating himself.
You should apologize to Scarlett too for having an affair.
My father-in-law was angry like that, and my husband apologized to me in a hurry.
Scarlett, I'm really sorry.
I don't feel any sincerity even if you apologize like that. What you did was the worst thing as a human being. Divorce me right now. My husband seemed to have realized that he had no right to express any opinions anymore. He agreed to divorce quietly. And I demanded compensation from my husband and his mistress. Furthermore, I decided to send my husband to hell to clear my sister-in-law's grudge. My husband and his mistress were senior and junior colleagues working at the same company, so I reported everything to the company. Then, in no time, information that my husband rejected his sister who had come seeking help because he was afraid that his affair would be exposed, and as a result, his sister was involved in an incident, spread within the workplace. My husband suddenly became the target of criticism. He has now been transferred to a local area and is living alone without any acquaintances. He is said to be receiving cold stares there too, but he cannot quit his job because he has to pay compensation. On the other hand, my sister-in-law and her daughter were able to recover from their injuries and were discharged from the hospital. The man who was her boyfriend was caught by the police and arrested. Although it was his first offense, he was sent to prison because of the severity of his actions and the fact that he had lashed out violently before. By the way, the reason why my sister-in-law's boyfriend was so angry this time was that he happened to pass by the cafe and saw her talking happily with an old man sitting at the counter. He suspected her of cheating. It's crazy to get so angry that you hurt someone over something like that, and I'm glad he was caught. Although it was a disaster for my sister-in-law, she blamed herself for not having the courage to break up with him. She also deeply regretted putting her daughter in danger. So she decided to return to her parents' house with her daughter. And she decided to open a new cafe in her hometown. Although my sister-in-law is not completely blameless, I think she was more scared after the breakup. I can't completely blame her. For now, I hope that my sister-in-law and her daughter's emotional wounds will heal a little by returning to her parents' house. Also, I'm a big fan of the coffee she makes, so I plan to visit her cafe occasionally on my days off. While drinking my sister-in-law's coffee, I hope to talk to her and be a support for her.
Scarlett's husband is really the worst. It's a problem that her sister-in-law couldn't break up with her boyfriend, but I think it's her husband's responsibility that he didn't help her when she was really in danger. It's unbelievable that he even sent her away to hide his affair. I think Scarlett's husband deserves a heavier punishment. In any case, I'm glad her misunderstanding has been cleared up. I hope Scarlett, her sister-in-law, and her daughter can have happy days from now on.